Morning, everybody. It is 6:45 a.m. Tuesday, January 31st. Last day of the longest month of the dang year, January. Alright. Gonna kind of talk about a few things, a little ramble, see what you guys think. So my wife's reading a book by C.S. Lewis. It's a book series, and the first one she's into now talks about a universal natural law that is recognized by nearly, if not all, human beings. And as such, she uses an example, and evidently this example's in the book, that if there was no natural law, why did the Nazis during World War II cover up the atrocities that they were performing when they themselves had internally, at least they thought they did, had internally justified the act? If the law of nature is true, then they knew what they were doing was wrong. But they kept doing it because they had internally justified that the end justified the means. And there you go. You know, natural law is life is sacred, life has meaning. You know, what is the first in the Declaration of Independence? Life, liberty, then the pursuit of happiness. First in there is life. We have the right to life. And as such, another conundrum inside of my wife's book is, if natural law, God's law, whatever you want to call it, is a reality, and life is our first inalienable right given by that natural law, why has it been almost since the dawn of written language that man has subjugated and enslaved man? Ultimately, through history and even of today, owning a slave was a symbol of power and esteem. Now, during the colony days and during pre-Civil War, the owning of slaves was still a status symbol because it meant that your estate and your crops and your business dealings afforded you slaves to make you even more profitable. So, it wasn't just having a butler, an enslaved butler, or maid service, or nannies, or a couple of guys to help hired hands, enslaved hands around the farm. These were teams of slaves that would harvest crops. And the more slaves you had, the more crops you could harvest, the more profitable you could be, then you could own more slaves. So, in those days, it was a status symbol, but it was also a business investment. Just like businesses nowadays start off with, either manual labor to do a job, and then they invest in automation, and they invest in more automation until, it's nearly a fully automated system. In those days, you started with 1 or 2 slaves, invested in more slaves, invested in more slaves, invested in more slaves. Until you had a bad crop, bad weather, or whatever it is, then you'd have to sell off some slaves. But that's how it worked. But is the ownership of slaves, the ownership of persons, against the law of nature? I mean, it's 2023. We still have slaves. We have sex slaves. We have, big time slave trades in that. And on a lesser note, the indentured slavery that is the credit system of today. You offered us, money, and we took that money, and now we are forced to work off that debt. And what's interesting is back in the day of indentured servitudes, a job was ready-made to work off that debt. Butler, maid, stuff like that. And then once your debt was paid, you could, go off and do your thing. Nowadays, that ready-made job to help you to work off that debt is not there anymore. You have to then find a job that not only pays your needs, puts food on the table, a roof over your head, and a bed for you to sleep on, but then pays off your debt. Ladies and gentlemen, man's number one inalienable right, the right to life. We were not meant to be slaves to a bank, to be slaves to a master. And yet, even though we aren't handcuffed to a dirty bed in some backwater hole in the wall somewhere, we are slaves to wants that we feel that we need. How many people have bought stuff on a credit card and don't ever, I mean, you got a credit card, you bought one thing on it, but with interest and everything on it, you actually cut up the credit card after that. So you didn't add any more debt to that credit card. How many of you actually, the product that you bought broke before you had it paid off? Before you put that credit card down to zero? That's some shit. And in today's day and age, we don't fix shit. We throw it away and buy new. Natural law, guys. The right to life. Get you some.